C, and today I'm going to be showing you a little something that you might want to do yourself at some point in the future on the Begode Extreme. So I have already decided to take the suspension on the Begode Extreme and swap it for something else, mostly because the stock one over there decided to fail on me. But what I'm doing today is putting in a coil-over with a piggyback reservoir. So it's going to take a little bit of modifications. This by default also comes with a 550-pound spring. So I got a spring from Marty from his S22, chopped off the part that made it a little too long and stuck it in there, so all is well. Going to be using the angle grinder for a few more things as well. For instance, the hardware that I'm going to be recommending you get, not quite chubby enough. I bet there's the right thing and somebody could tell me what it is, but I used a 1/4 inch union for these things, and I used the angle grinder to slice one cut down the side so I could tap it on there. And I'm going to also need to cut this a little bit shorter to get it to go. So kickstand gone, cross member in there will be gone. This is going to be sandwiched here with those bolts I was talking about, separately here, so the reservoir will have a place to hang there. So that's the long and short of it, and I'll get going and I'll show you what I'm doing along the way. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is take off my... So these pads go on the same way as the stock pads, which means they come off the same way. I made a little plexiglass Lexan polycarbonate. I think I did polycarbonate because I thought it would not shatter when I crashed, and it shatters just the same. But yeah, it is kind of cool being able to take your pads on and off with an impact driver or Allen wrench or whatever. Okay. And I probably should turn the wheel around because all the good stuff's in the back. And I don't want to move the camera so much, but that actually does seem like a lot of work. So I'm going to leave it like this for now. I'll do handheld stuff. But speaking of handheld stuff, so the next thing, I guess I'd stopped recording with the touch screen. But anyway, okay, so the next thing you got to do is take the screws off the battery packs. You don't have to remove them, but that'll make it so that you could get to that little screw in there. So it's behind the battery boxes. So normally you take out that screw and the suspension comes out, no problem, and you can put in a different shock. I'm also going to be taking off this screw, that screw, and removing the kickstand entirely. I'm going to be getting rid of this little cross member in here because that's, like I said before, in the way of the oil reservoir on that shock, that guy right there. So let me take those apart and see what happens next. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to know is which of these holes back here is the harder position. So what I did was I held it in position here and saw that these are kind of equidistant from the starting position. So then I figured out, because this thing stays about in the same position as the suspension travel goes, the bottom part there of the shock would end up closer to this hole. So I'm pretty sure that the inside hole is the harder position. So I actually moved the little shoulder washer thingy over there. So I will not be using this hole, but I will be using this hole. All right, well, I put in all of the screws. I do need to shorten this screw here because you see it sort of wiggles. So these are made to not be super tight in there, but you can see like this one is, it'll wiggle, but the way it's supposed to, just like all of these little things should be able to turn. That shouldn't be, the little metal thing that goes across isn't supposed to be like, I don't know, able to be tightened on. Well, I guess it is. So this tightens onto the metal thing, keeps everything else loose so that this part, the shock itself, doesn't get bound up. So anyway, this is good enough now for me to test it out, and I'll see how it goes. Well, that is the third shock I've had on in 24 hours, and this one, my friends, is a keeper. Just did a little ride outside. It felt awesome. Yeah, just and the adjustability, compression, and rebound. So I'm gonna go ahead and put in, you know, all these screws. They're just extra, but I'm gonna go ahead and throw them on anyway. So, anyway. But yeah, liking what I'm feeling so far. So I do think this guy is coming with me to Arkansas, but I don't know if I'll race it. Okay, so what is the moral of the story, and should you do that? It's a little bit more annoying than doing one of the direct suspension swap out things. Like I actually have a direct replacement from the same company, but the shock itself wasn't as adjustable, and I just didn't like the feel as much. So for me, this is worth it because I really care about how the suspension works, and I want to make sure it works the way I want it to work, and I want the adjustments that I want in my suspension. So the downside that I found on doing this is I lost about 8 millimeters of suspension travel, and that's from the start. So normally that is where you're sagged out anyway, so not a huge deal, but it's there. The other downside is this isn't just stuff you go and you put in your cart on Amazon and then put it together. I had to cut bolts with an angle grinder. I had to slice copper sleeves to get them to fit around other hardware that I had that was the wrong length also, and the spring that came with it wasn't hard enough spring, so I had to get a heavier spring, which mine was off an S22, so it was too long, and I chopped it down, which was a lot of fun, but maybe you won't think it's fun. So if you're okay with all of these little annoyances, then this is definitely a superior product now. So that being said, if you don't feel comfortable doing all this stuff, find a friend that is, maybe, and buy him a bunch of beer and pizza, and take it really didn't take very long at all to do, but take the time and do it. So anyway, it was fun sharing this with you, and looking forward to seeing you on the trails with your modified Extremes, although I may still be on my modified Master because it's my favorite. But I don't know, we'll see. I got to get some miles on this one. I think I'm going to take it around Fullerton at lunch tomorrow and post that video up. It'll be one of those real-time videos, and I think I'm going to try to get the no, that GPS never works right on the GoPro. I think I tried that previous. Yeah, maybe I'll do a Strava and then do an overlay, but then it'll delay me uploading the blah, blah, blah. Anyway, been fun. Talk to you later. Peace out.